Hello everyone, welcome in or welcome back. We are getting super close to 150,000 subscribers on this channel, and if you haven't done so yet, I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. The channel has had so much growth this year, and I'm really hoping that we can get to 150 before the end of the year. And for those who have been with me since the start, thank you all for being here. So today we have our Crime of the Month series. This is where we cover any updates from previous cases and other crime happenings in the news. There weren't any big updates this month that I saw, so let's get right into some September crime stories. Let's get into it. Have you ever been looking for the perfect parking spot, and at last you find the perfect one? And you go in to get into that parking spot, and then someone comes along and scoots on in? Doesn't that make you want to just viciously attack that person? No, me either. But that apparently wasn't the case for Beyond Meat Chief Operating Officer Doug Ramsey. Beyond Meat is a very popular plant-based meat alternative. The COO was in a parking garage on September 17th following a university football game in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and became enraged when another vehicle cut in front of him and reportedly made contact with his car. Ramsey exited his vehicle, approached the Subaru that cut him off, and punched a hole in the rear windshield, threatening to kill the driver. The driver exited the vehicle, and that was when Ramsey attacked. The driver exited the vehicle, which, in my opinion, was bold. I'm definitely not approaching someone who just punched a hole in the rear windshield. That is not something I would do, but I digress. And after the driver exited the vehicle, Ramsey then attacked him physically, beating the driver, punching him, and then bit off the tip of the driver's nose. Officers arrested Ramsey, and he was charged with uttering terroristic threats and battery in the third degree. He was released the following day on an $11,000 bail. His next court appearance is in October. Following the news of the assault, he has since been suspended from his position with Beyond Meats. In a very brief statement addressing the COO, they simply confirmed his removal and announced an interim who would be handling Ramsey's duties while they found another COO. This isn't even Beyond Meat's only scandal involving their leadership team. In 2021, it was discovered that their chief of finance, Mark Nelson, was involved in a fraud scheme. He had been allowed to retire from the company. First off, I want to say that this is still a developing story, but one that is shocking. Journalism can be dangerous, and we've seen multiple instances of journalists covering corruption, politics, and fraud receiving death threats to attempt to silence them. We've also seen journalists silenced with murder. And that appears to have been the case with 69-year-old Jeff German, a longtime investigative journalist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He was found on September 3rd, stabbed to death outside his home. It was discovered that the attack was caught on surveillance footage. The suspect was dressed in a straw hat and high-vis shirt and calmly walked up to the driveway of German's home and waited. German pulled up in his vehicle, and when he exited and walked along the side of his house, he was attacked and stabbed multiple times. Then the suspect is seen walking away, just as calmly as they had walked into the frame. During the investigation, law enforcement received access to current and past articles he had written. Because the violence had been isolated to murdering Jeff German, it was immediately believed that his work had been the motive for the attack. That led detectives to learn that a local politician may have wanted harm to befall the veteran journalist. 45-year-old Robert Tells had been the focus of German's attention since he came into office as the Clark County Public Administrator's Office in 2018. In one of his most recent articles, he had alleged that Tells was having a 2-year affair with one of his staffers. Tells had been up for re-election, and the timing of the article may have been what had lost him that election. The article also included video footage of what the reporter alleged to have been an intimate encounter with Tells and a woman in a parking garage. This was vehemently denied by both Tells and the staffer. Before he stepped into local politics, Robert Tells worked as a lawyer in probate courts. People who worked with him described him as driven and smart, but having a short temper. Tells came from a long line of politicians, including his father, who had also been driven out of office following a public bribery scandal. Tells had legal troubles of his own when, after a night of excessive drinking in 2020, his wife called 911 saying that her husband was going crazy. She was heard on the 911 call with a child crying in the background, saying to the dispatcher, "He just won't leave us alone, and it's just me and my kids, and we're scared."
Who did I hit?
This is Metro body cam footage from when Tellis was arrested for domestic violence in 2020. He says while he hadn't seen the footage, Tellis acknowledged having problems with excessive drinking and ADHD.
When I blacked out, it scared my wife and scared my kids. I didn't hurt them, but I scared them enough to call the police on me.
His wife declined to press domestic violence charges. However, he was later arrested for resisting arrest. He received a 90-day sentence and had to pay a fine and attend a stress management class. Social media played a large part in this investigation. Tells had attacked Jeff German several times on Twitter, disputing claims that German had made in articles. On Tells' website, he had also made several statements claiming German was paying people to follow him, go through his trash, and do anything to ruin his reputation due to different political affiliations. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, when going through video surveillance from the area around German's home, noticed a vehicle slowly driving around the neighborhood several times. This vehicle was later matched to Tells' vehicle. LVMPD issued a search warrant and found several items that matched clothing worn by the attacker in Tells' home. They recovered shoes that had bloodstains on them and a straw hat. Both items had been cut up in what they believed was an attempt to destroy them. Robert Tells was arrested on September 4th and taken into custody, where he was interviewed. He was released later that day pending DNA results, a move that the LVMPD said was Tells' constitutional right. When those results came back on September 7th, positively linking Tells to the crime scene, they went back to arrest him. When they arrived at his home, according to the police records, Tells was found with what is being described as superficial, self-inflicted, but non-life-threatening injuries to his wrists, as well as having taken a dose of an unknown medication. He was treated at the hospital, there were no lasting effects, and he was remanded back into custody. Captain Dory Corrin spoke at a press conference about Robert Tells' arrest and said that Tells blamed Jeff German for unraveling his personal and professional life. Since his arrest, Tells has taken several interviews from jail. While he isn't talking about Jeff German's murder, it appears he is trying to clear his name. Tells is a lawyer. He knows what lies ahead for him legally. His first lawyer has already left the case, and at this time, it isn't clear what his next move is. If convicted, Tells faces up to 50 years in prison or the death penalty. Let me know down in the comment section below if you want me to keep following this case. It was in Fort Worth, Texas in 1971 when Alta Highsmith placed an ad in the paper for a babysitter. A woman answered the ad who called herself Ruth Johnson and stated that she would love to look after Alta's 1-year-old toddler, Melissa. The woman arranged to meet at Alta's job, but the woman didn't show up. Johnson later called the next day, claiming that she'd been in a car accident on the way and apologized for missing their appointment. She stated that she looked after other children and had a large home with a big backyard and really wanted the job. Alta agreed to hire the woman and made arrangements for her to pick up Melissa the following morning. Johnson came to the apartment on August 23rd around 7:30 a.m. and showed up nicely dressed, and Alta's roommate gave her Melissa. When Alta returned home from work and waited for Ruth Johnson to bring back her child, she waited a few hours, but ultimately called the police around 8 p.m. Law enforcement determined that the woman was likely using a fake name, and unfortunately, there had been little to go on. The roommate provided a statement of the woman and a sketch was drawn up. She stated that the woman had been wearing an odd outfit for a hot Texas August. She'd been wearing all white with long gloves and a scarf over her head and around her neck. She said that her outfit vaguely looked like an old nurse's uniform. It is long since believed that the child had been abducted in order to raise a child with a different family, perhaps an illegal adoption scheme. The case was reopened in 2005 at the request of Melissa's sister, who has long been spearheading Melissa's cold case along with the other siblings. Melissa would now be 52 years old, and on September 11th, an anonymous tip came into the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, saying that they knew a woman living on Daniels Island in Charleston, South Carolina, who they believed might be Melissa Highsmith. While we don't know for sure at this time if the woman has been found or confirmed to be Melissa, this is a great opportunity to bring further awareness to her case. You never know when a tip will lead to the conclusion of a cold case. On September 7th, around midnight, 911 dispatchers received a call saying that there was an intruder that had broken into their Dublin, California home. There were 6 people sleeping in the home at the time, and it was 2 gunshots that had woken the household. The victims were the homeowners and married couple, 42-year-old Maria Tran and 58-year-old Benison Tran. Their 14-year-old son had witnessed the shooting. Another person in the home who was visiting recognized the intruder as Alameda Sheriff's Deputy Devin Williams Jr. When Williams realized he had not only been seen by multiple witnesses, but had also been positively identified, he fled the scene. Maria and Benison were determined to be deceased. Shock ran through the neighborhood. What had possessed a member of law enforcement to break in and murder a married couple in the middle of the night? Williams is 24 years old and had been with the sheriff's office since 2021. There had been no concerns about his job performance or any concerns about him during his time working there. He had worked his normal shift earlier that day and also picked up an overtime shift at the Santa Rita jail. He left work at 11 p.m. after his shift and drove 50 miles to the Trans home and murdered them. Law enforcement is looking into what happened that day. It was revealed that Williams and Maria had been dating for a few months. Maria was separated from her husband, but the two were still living together. Maria was a nurse and had met Williams at the John George Psychiatric Hospital. Williams surrendered to law enforcement after 11 hours on the run, which also revealed a possible motive for the slayings. According to Williams' mother, her son hadn't passed his probationary period, though she didn't reveal why, and she also stated that Williams was angry at Maria because she had lied about still being married. He had been led to believe that Maria was a 35-year-old single parent who was divorced. She said in a statement to the media, "I don't condone anything that happened. Bottom line is right now, there's a young boy that's missing both his mother and father." Williams himself nor any legal representatives has made any statements so far. He is currently being held in the jail that he worked in, the Santa Rita jail in Alameda County, on charges of first-degree murder and second-degree burglary. No further court dates have been set yet. It is believed that he used his service weapon to commit the murders. He had thrown the weapon out of his vehicle while he was on the run, and law enforcement was not able to recover that weapon. Maria Tran is remembered as a brilliant and caring nurse. Benison had worked for nearly 30 years as a civil engineer for the city of Santa Clara. He had recently retired. Both were described as hardworking, generous, and kind individuals. They will be deeply missed by their community. A senseless act, whatever the reason, could never justify what happened to them. As always, if you give this video a like if you enjoyed the content, that would be much appreciated, as it is the easiest way to help the channel grow. And as always, let me know what you want me to keep covering. If you see any crime stories that you want me to cover, don't forget to shoot me an email or comment down below. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.